everyone, welcome back. Josh B, and Alex Goldman here from the stands, and we are joined this morning very luckily by not just a legend of the game of MMA, but very quickly becoming a legend of the podcast game and one half of the Anik and Florian podcast, Kenny Florian. Kenny, thank you very much for joining us this morning, man. How you doing?
I'm well, boys. How are you?
Yeah,
thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Can't complain. So, look, I want to get straight into it. And my first question for you is, about a sport that I know is near and dear to your heart, and that's actually jiu-jitsu. I was wondering, with sort of the growth of jiu-jitsu that's really been happening over the last year or so, do you think it's only a matter of time till we start to see, major organizations like the PFL really begin to throw, a lot of money into competitive jiu-jitsu almost as, its own entity or its own sort of organization and brand?
It's possible. I love jiu-jitsu. I think that's an accurate statement of what you said. It really is near and dear to my heart. However, I think there's a ways to go in regards to making jiu-jitsu a little bit more exciting to watch. I think certain competitors, certain rule sets are better than others, right? So with that, you kind of have to pick the right competitors, pick the right rule sets to make sure that people are advancing position, making it exciting, all that stuff. Do I see that right now? I'm not so sure. I think there was a lot of positive outcomes with what happened with the last EDCC. I think that was a big sign that the sport is still growing and that it can be great. The last event was amazing, the best event that I've ever been a part of. And then I'm not just being biased because I was literally a part of it, commentating things like that. But, and I think the next one's going to be even bigger. So I think it depends on what rule set and all that stuff. And no-gi in particular, I think, has way more potential than jiu-jitsu with the gi, I think, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, definitely. Kenny, my question is sort of directed on the PFL. And I think this year, what the PFL has done, in my opinion, 2023 is the best year in PFL's history. I think it's been an incredible year for the company and the organization overall. As you sort of look beyond and into 2024, and with the rumors circling about Bellator and all that sort of stuff, do you think, which I think will grow, the company a hell of a lot. But do you think we will see more homegrown talent emerge and become UFC-like stars? The household names that we see, because I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's where PFL is trending.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think that they're really dedicated to finding the best talent possible. And I think that it's not always possible to get every single person over from another organization. I think at the end of the day, you have to kind of have that grassroots movement of identifying new and upcoming talent, and also having the infrastructure and the events to identify that talent as well, and also to bring them up in the right way, get them the experience, and then kind of bring them up to the bigger shows. And I think that right now it seems to be a very good formula. I think you get guys who have done well in the Challenger Series that are clearly doing very well in the PFL. I know Impa Kasanganay obviously was fighting in the UFC prior to that. I would probably exclude him. I'm not sure that's a fair comparison, but I think that when you get a guy like Gabriel Braga, he came in through the Challenger Series. He's now going to be in the final against Jesus Pinedo. Jesus Pinedo, another one, didn't necessarily come through the Challenger Series, but he was a fighter that was identified as having a lot of potential and has proven his work this year as well. So those are two guys that will be facing each other in the final. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that needs to continue to happen. We have guys that are, guys like Ray Sefo, Dan Hardy, of course, who's doing a phenomenal job over in Europe, finding guys, organizing events, being a matchmaker for us. So when you get guys that are former fighters on that level who have a keen eye for the game, that's what's going to bring in that talent as well. So I think that gives us an upper hand there. I think it's competitive, right? I think Europe and Australia, a bunch of other places are producing a lot of talent. It's just up to us to go out there, find them, bring them in.
Yeah,
for sure. Don Davis, recently came out and said that an offer had been made to Nate Diaz to fight Jake Paul in MMA. And my question is, do you think if that fight were to happen in MMA that it could outperform the numbers that they did in boxing? You know, given that Nate is a much bigger star in the world of MMA than he is in the world of boxing.
I think so. I definitely think so. Nate Diaz is a massive, massive star, and rightfully so. I mean, he's been in the game for a very long, long time. It was great to see a dude like that who has literally, spilled a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the cage over the years, and to finally get those huge paydays. And he's got options, man. He's a multimillionaire at this stage of the game. Hopefully, we're able to bring him into the PFL and get that fight going. I think that it's definitely way more in his wheelhouse than the last one was. And yeah, I think that I'd love to see that fight. I'd love to be a commentator for that fight. Both guys have established themselves as stars, as guys that people want to watch fight, and I think it'd be important to kind of have a rematch and to do it now in a mixed martial arts landscape.
Yeah, definitely. Kenny, look, we're now 3 weeks out from the PFL championships, and sort of as the year's closing out, and especially the season in which PFL conducts the way that they compete. Who has been your 2023 standout star, your most impressive fighter this year? I think the names you mentioned. Jesus Beneda was a fantastic one, a guy that a lot of people didn't think could beat Brendan Loughnane, and to see what he's done is incredible. Impa Kasanganay is a big one as well. But for you, who has been a standout and the most impressive, impressed you the most this year?
Gosh, and both those guys are up there, no question about it. And it's difficult to say. And I hate isolating just one person. You're putting me on the spot here, but I think Gabriel Braga. He's the other guy that I mentioned. Why do I say Gabriel Braga? Well, first of all, this is going to be his 5th fight in like 8 months or something crazy like that, 9 months, which is the same amount as Impa. However, he's never really fought on the big stage. Yes, he was undefeated, but he was still very young. We didn't really know a whole lot about him. He called his shot. He said he was going to be in the final and was going to win $1 million before he even competed in the Challenger Series. And certainly had a lot of talent, but to do that straight away against top tier talent, it's just very rare. It really is.
Yeah.
And he's got all the skills. He's got the background. His dad, of course, the guy that actually I've trained with in Brazil. So he's got that level of pedigree. He has that level of mentoring. He's been wanting to do this since he's a little kid. So he's that new breed of fighter that maybe not having as much experience as the others can go right into a high level organization and do well. So he's probably the number one guy on the list right now for me.
Yep.
One thing, Kenny, that PFL is doing that I think is really great is they're really sort of investing in the growth of women's MMA, and with PFLW kind of around the corner, I was wondering what impact do you think PFLW can have for the development of women's MMA? Because from my mind, it's a lot of young up and coming female mixed martial artists are going to be able to look at that and see a female mixed martial artist as the figurehead or the sort of poster child for that organization, and they can aspire to reach that level of stardom.
Yeah, I think that the PFL is really dedicated to trying to do their best to promote women's mixed martial arts. Of course, we have Kayla Harrison, one of the biggest stars in the sport, and of course, representing women's MMA for a while now. So that's very helpful having someone on that level. But you can see that, again, talk about scouting. They're looking for other women like Dakota Ditcheva and a lot of other fighters from various backgrounds. And they're doing it with various weight classes as well. So I think they're experimenting with a lot of things. They're out there looking for talent, whether it's PFL Europe or, PFL in general, and really trying to pay these ladies. Clarissa Shields, I mean, she's probably making more in MMA with us than she is with boxing in certain capacity, I think. And it just goes to show you that they're willing to pay fighters, and I think that's also attractive for people who are fighting, for fighters who are fighting in other organizations. Going, wait a sec, there's other money elsewhere, and anytime you have options like that, it makes it great for not only the fans but for the fighters themselves. And I think it's an option that fighters are going to be thinking about more and more for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Kenny, just switching gears a little bit. I just want to, obviously, it was very fresh in the news, and I do want to touch on it. Francis Ngannou and what he did last week, I think, was one of the most incredible things combat sporting displays I've ever seen. Mixed martial arts, boxing, whatever you want. I think that was truly incredible. And I saw Don Davis came out this week with Ariel, and he said that it might not be next MMA. It will be next year, but it might not be next. And because the opponents, it's a bit of a catch-22 because he needs that big opponent now. So,
yeah,
who do you think in an ideal world could realistically fight Francis that's not in the UFC and generate the interest from the fans, from the public that would be tuning in to watch that and know who his opponent is?
Yeah, that's a good question. Listen, I think that there were some options perhaps prior to that Tyson Fury fight, but there's no question about it. After arguably defeating Tyson Fury, I thought Tyson Fury won the fight. However, it was extremely close, and he landed the best punch of the fight, right?
Yeah.
And his first go out there against Tyson Fury, undefeated heavyweight champion, that's insane. It's unbelievable what he was able to accomplish. But with that, and this is great for Francis, it took him to yet another level as a combat sports star. So now you go, well, what the heck are we supposed to do now? Now we got to find someone who really is a bona fide star in mixed martial arts. Otherwise, for a guy who already was a UFC heavyweight champion, what's in it for him? Yes, he'll most likely get paid well, but I think once you've established yourself and you're on that level, you need someone to be able to dance with you, someone that's going to get you excited and maybe a little bit nervous for that next fight. And as of right now, I'm not sure we have that guy in the heavyweight division. We haven't had that level of consistency in the PFL heavyweight division with guys winning 2-3 times. We don't have that Kayla Harrison type star in the UFC and the PFL heavyweight division yet. So either we have to find someone who's at the end of their contract who's willing to come over, or something insane needs to happen in that Renan Ferreira Dennis Volkov fight to make it worthwhile. So yeah, we're kind of in a tough situation there, because you want people to tune in, and if it's someone that a lot of people deem that's going to be an easy fight for Francis, you can't really sell that fight. So that's a little bit of a conundrum for us for sure right now.
Yeah,
for sure. Kenny, last couple of questions from us, last one from me anyway, but, you kind of mentioned them earlier, but one athlete, I think really deserves mention, is Impa Kasanganay, who's been incredibly active in really sort of building his brand and his name, within the MMA world, over the last year in particular. He's booked against, the incredibly tough Josh Silveira, for November 24th. I was curious, how can you sort of see that fight playing out? Because from my mind, I think it goes one of two ways, which is I think it's either incredibly quick and ends early in the first, or it's a very back and forth barn burner.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my fights to watch. Josh Silveira has been amazing. Comes from that excellent grappling background. His father, of course, Conan Silveira, legendary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, one of the pioneers in the sport. Also wrestled at the Division I level. And has shown that he knows how to strike as well now. Just seems way more composed and relaxed in the cage, and just knows how to put it all together. So I have him as the favorite heading into that. However, Impa continues to impress, and I think he's a guy that you cannot count out at all. I think he is the more dangerous striker in that he can end the fight in with one strike. I don't think Josh Silveira can do that. Impa has just this amazing God-given power that is impressive to watch. He's been a giant slayer all year. He's been extremely focused. I've had the opportunity to talk to him personally. Absolutely love the guy. He's extremely humble. He finds a lot of strength in his faith.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that I would not be surprised if he became a world champion this year. No question about it. That's a fight that is very, very difficult to pick. And with Impa and all the momentum that he's had, again, this is his 5th fight in the year, which is just insane. So, what a monster, man! I can't wait for that fight.
Definitely, Kenny. Last question from us, man. It's something I want to touch on. Is your relationship with the great John Anik, the GOAT? I think has been incredible. He really is what he's done since coming into the UFC and becoming the main guy on the commentating desk is incredible. I always gave a lot of credit to Mike Goldberg as the voice of the Octagon, and when he left, I always thought, man, he was the guy I love listening to. Who can replace him?
Yeah.
And now I think the same about John. I'm like, there's no one that can replace John. He really is incredible. How has that been for you as a guy that's a friend of his, and for so long, seeing him develop and really become the voice of the UFC and the voice of mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, man. I feel lucky that I've been doing mixed martial arts related content with John since 2007. I remember him just absolutely working his butt off, trying to learn about the sport and consuming everything he could about it, doing all these things for free, just grinding. And to see him with his level of success right now, it's so well deserved, not only because of how hard he's worked, but the level that he's achieved as a broadcaster in the sports sphere. I think he's one of the best in sports, period, not only in the UFC. So I think that that is a very difficult thing to do. And it's all because of his hard work and his talent and his love for it, and to want to be the best in the game. He came in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because it was Mike Goldberg. He had that seat for so long. And I don't think it was necessarily his goal to I'm going to take Goldie's seat. Yeah. But he was just like, I need to establish myself and be the best version of myself that I can. And he has absolutely done that and proven that he is so valuable to that organization as a broadcaster, because he just makes it so much better and so much more watchable. So I'm really excited to see John. I don't think many people realize what he had to do to get to where he's at right now. And, that whole thing about being an overnight sensation, overnight success story.
Yeah, that's him.
People love to throw that around, but he's been that, but he's been doing it for, well over a decade. So he's the man, man. John is awesome. And I try my best to learn from him whenever I can, and having the opportunity to do the podcast with him once, twice every week. It has been a great value to me, and to see my friend at that level makes me extremely proud.
Awesome. Kenny, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Look, from Alex and I, I grew up watching you compete, and now seeing you doing what you're doing in an analyst form and commentating, and with John, it's incredible, man. You're a true pioneer of the sport, and thank you for what you've done for us and the sport, and growing it to where it is, and thank you for giving us the time today. We sincerely appreciate it, mate. We'd love to talk to you again down the line.
Anytime. Means a lot, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you.